On the podcast today, we will speak about chapter 59 of the Tao Te Ching, which makes up the 59th episode of the 81 meditations on the Tao Te Ching. And as usual, Guyang will read Jia Fu Feng and Jane English's translation, and I will read Derek Lin's translation.
In caring for others and serving heaven, there's nothing like using restraint. Restraint begins with giving up our own ideas. This depends on virtue gathered in the past. If there is good store of virtue, then nothing is impossible. If nothing is impossible, then there are no limits. If we know no limits, then we are fit to rule. The mother principle of ruling holds good for a long time. This is called having deep roots and a firm foundation. The Tao of long life and eternal vision.
In governing people and serving heaven, there is nothing like conservation. Only with conservation is it called submitting early. Submitting early is called emphasis on accumulating virtues. Accumulating virtues means there is nothing one cannot overcome. When there is nothing that one cannot overcome, one's limits are unknown. The limitations being unknown, one can possess sovereignty. With this mother principle of power, one can be everlasting. This is called deep roots and firm foundation. The Tao of longevity and lasting vision. So this chapter is about leadership from cultivating virtues, which is not just about a ruler or a king. This also applies to every individual, even though in the Warring States period of China, I'm pretty sure Lao Tzu was suggesting these principles and these teachings to rulers. And that was part of the reason that the Tao Te Ching was left behind. But that's what this chapter is primarily about. It's about cultivating those virtues and living according to those virtues as we gradually gain wisdom as we live through our life.
Yes, I think there are two important words within this chapter. One is restraint and the other is virtue, I think. That you're cultivating virtue from restraint. And restraint can mean a few different meanings in this chapters, and actually throughout different type of interpretation of this chapter, actually it means differs somewhat, little bit, but actually in the end it is talking about the virtue of a leader in the end. So yeah, restraint here in this translation is giving up our own ideas, so it can mean again, cultivating your virtues through strong inner work, persistent inner work, as in like spiritual work, you can also say that, and certain force within yourself, mysterious capacity, which is, so yes, giving up your own ideas, so you're not being rigid and whatnot. And the other way of understanding the word restraint in this chapter is also being kind of frugal, not being wasteful in a way. And we can also there understand that not being considerable, calm, and also emptying your mind, not being wasteful, being frugal, so that you're emptying your mind, not accumulating full of things in your heart, basically. So that leads to following the Tao eventually. So yeah, it's somewhat suggesting having a modest way of thinking, living, a lifestyle, and not waste of your life as well. We can understand that way, not wasting our energy into the wrong things, and wasting our time doing not important things.
That's right. So we could say it's like a inner and outer frugality. So the external and the internal. So we're frugal in both regards. And that's one of the emphasis all throughout the Tao Te Ching, right? Lao Tzu is emphasizing us to live a simple lifestyle because of this idea of conservation of energy, of conserving our energy, not wasting our time, using our time and energy wisely. And this reminds me of the wisdom of the three treasures in Taoism and in traditional Chinese medicine, where you have Jing, which is like the genetic makeup, the genetic battery that you've been given from birth by your parents, which slowly dwindles throughout your life. And then Qi, which is the vital force, the energy that's moving through us. Sanskrit, you would call it prana. And then there's the Shen, the spirit. Now, the best way to explain this is a candle analogy, which Master Herbalist Ron Teagarden mentioned, which is that the wick and the candle wax is the Jing, right? Is the power base of your being, and the Qi is the flame, and the Shen is the light given off by the flame. And so part of this metaphor is that if the flame is blowing here and there, if your mind is crazy, if you don't have inner frugality and it's going here and there and everywhere because you're a bit messy on the inside, or you are consumed by the vrittis in Sanskrit, the whirlpool of thoughts, then what happens to the wax? The wax begins to melt and the candle is burnt out quicker. But when the candle is still, the candle has a long life, and that represents for ourselves as well, like we have this longevity. And so like what the chapter is suggesting is that if we have that calm, we have that frugality, we live a very modest and simple lifestyle, then what happens is our roots sink deep. And so we go through this gradual process of wisdom. And so it's not something you attain overnight. So this is where Taoism might be different to other traditions, where some other traditions might think that you gain wisdom overnight, right? But there's something about this long and arduous process that is beautiful because it's very natural. The longer you live, the more you understand about yourself and actually the world around you.
Yes, I guess one thing about studying Taoism or Eastern wisdom tradition in general is that, like, because the result is not immediate, where immediacy is very important nowadays, right? Like immediate likes and love hearts, right? Yeah, that's how they want to judge whether you're popular or the post became popular or not, and this and that.
So important to be popular, yeah?
Yes, according to the social media platforms, yes. But studying wisdom tradition of the East is a very gradual process, right? So that's why you need to be persistent, and also you need to be you need to persevere in the process, right? And that's what is lacking these days with the throughout generation. I think it doesn't matter you're older or younger person, because we are living in this day and age where we need the result right now, right, immediately. Whereas studying wisdom traditions of the East is not like that at all. Actually, it's just like let's say the process of ripening a rice, right? Like it takes a long time of developing, growing, and gotta watering, tilting the soil and whatnot, and slowly it gets ripened. And once the rice grains gets ripened, it actually bows down to the ground. It becomes more humble, right? It's the same process. So, like we were talking about having virtue, right? It's a gradual and a slow process, which, again, in the old days, it wasn't important that whether you get noticed or not, right? You get recognized by others. He or she is doing a great work. It wasn't important, right? So, they valued a lot more, and it still is. It just not like, on a social media post that you don't advertise yourself like as in like steps or achievement or something like that. It doesn't work like that, right? And we know that. But once we follow this path genuinely and with an authentic heart, we know ourselves best, right? We cannot cheat ourselves. We can't lie to ourselves. Like in time, you get to learn about yourself a lot more, and you feel a bit more comfortable with yourself and the living life as it is, right? Without interfering with the life, right? Yeah. So, I like that your candle analogy, as in the light being Shen. I like that part a lot, because that could be for us as a human beings, like a light emanates through our eyes, maybe, and also like a level of energy that you kind of emanate from your own being, right? So if you have a strong Jing and the prana, the Qi, then you'll have a very pure and the beautiful Shen, the spirit, the candle light itself, right? And that cannot lie.
No, it cannot lie. Some scholars equate that Shen to like charisma, for example, like because like so if someone's very charismatic or very likable or very lovable, usually their eyes are very bright. They give off a sense of calm and peace and joyfulness from their personality. And so it could be equated to that as well. And in general, it's basically the light that you give off. So as you mentioned, with the eyes that are very bright, very peaceful, the personality which is very soothing and calm, and someone that is very likable, for example. And it can also equate to what you're doing as well. The Shen can equate to like the energy you're giving off in whatever craft you're doing. But again, that is an expression of the Shen within you, right? So that's sometimes how we find the evidence of that.
Yes.
And so to go back to what you were saying about gratification, the thing in our modern world is, and it's developed more and more over time, particularly because of social media and the internet and whatnot, is this idea of instant gratification. So people want to have sex now, they want to attain wealth now, they want to attain all knowledge now. There's like zero patience. There's really zero patience. But then when you think about everything natural in the world, everything that's beautiful is a gradual process. So we can use our relationship, for example, to where it is now, from when we first met to you and I sitting and speaking here. Like, there's a gradual process, which is a beautiful process that takes a long period of time. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen. And anything is like that. And then we have to think then, okay, so when we think about relationships, we're in relation to everything, right? So we're in relation to ourselves, we're in relation to the world, and we're also in relation to the Tao. Now, obviously it's all one, but there is that relational quality that makes up this mutual arising, sha shen in Chinese. So you have this mutual arising of you and the Tao, or in some sense the universe produces consciousness and consciousness evokes the universe. It's a unified oneness, a mutual oneness. And so anything that is beautiful takes time to develop. And so that goes for us on a personal level. We are alive and we are growing like a beautiful tree. And so everything we attain in our life, the wisdom, the relationships, the understanding of ourselves and the world, takes sometimes a little bit of time. But we've turned everything, even enlightenment, into instant gratification. I need it now. I need it now, as if it's not already now. So we turn everything into that. And that's one of the big problems that a lot of people suffer from in Eastern spirituality. And it reminds me of one of the great stories from the Zhuangzi, the useless tree analogy, where everyone would look at the useless tree with all of its contorted branches, and there was no straightness to this tree, right? But everyone came to the tree to seek shelter when it was either raining or it was a sunny day. And see, that's the Shen the useless tree is giving off. It has been left alone to grow big and old because it is just following the Tao. It's just following the simple path. It doesn't need a lot of things, where the straight tree, the straight and tall tree, is the first one cut down and used for planks and build houses and boats and whatnot, whereas the useless tree is left alone. And because it is useless, in air quotes, its roots are allowed to grow deep into the ground, and so it has a lot of strength. Nothing can blow that tree over. And that's one of the important analogies for us as humans, because the more mature we are throughout our life and the more wisdom we attain, the deeper our roots are, the harder it is for us to get blown over. No matter what the circumstances are, no matter who's trying to cancel you, you are strong. You have inner courage, you have valor, you have this inner strength that nothing can be taken away from you, because you are like that useless tree. But the irony is, because you are like that useless tree, people come to you to seek solace. They come to you to seek shelter. They come to you for wisdom, because you are like a sage. And that's what actually in the Zhuangzi text, the useless tree is really an analogy of a great Taoist sage, because they are left alone by society, but they are allowed to grow old and wise, and people go to them to seek understanding about the world.
Yes. Straight and tall trees have been like somewhat induced, or some of the cases induced to grow like that, right? Because it's useful to make things, and like it has a lot of uses. Whereas a useless tree has been, as you said, left alone, just like ourselves as an individual. So, as in, like, we want to feel useful, right? We want to have a good use within a society, so that we feel belong in the society, right? Because you can be in service of something, right? Yes, okay. In that kind of intention can be very innocent and pure, right? But underneath that, we have a extreme insecurity. I think we are insecure just being who we are, what we are, and just as we are, right? And you feel not enough, not good enough, lack, right? And you have a self-doubt and this and that. That kind of insecurity always leads ourselves into seeking external things. Let's say having degrees, lots of degrees, right? Many majors. I go to a master's degree and doctorate degree and whatnot. And you accumulate these things on your profile to prove that how useful you can be, right? And again, like I said, bigger the fear and this insecurity that you have of yourself, more that you have something to prove externally, right? And that is, again, first thing to be chopped down. It's just like a narrow, straight and tall trees, right? And more you pursue that way, you will get more disappointed, get a bit disappointed by something, or things not gonna go in your way, because that's just how life is. And so you will be, first and foremost, I think, will get disappointed of yourself. But as here, yourself as in not real self, I think. It's just that how you want to be accepted in the society as how useful person you are, actually. But again, doesn't really, we know that doesn't really help your inner intrinsic nature of yourself, right? But if you were to just do things without expecting any sort of results, or finding love of your passion, following the passion or something like that, without having some sort of financial gain motivation or something like that. You just follow something that you love, and that becomes the expression of your true self, right? Just like useless tree. How the useless tree grows big, and the branches go here and there and everywhere, and they create a great shelter for everyone to rest. And so that once your authentic beauty emanates from yourself, within yourself authentically, then itself is already so beautiful, and people just appreciate already what you are and who you are, right? And as you are. So that's that's what's important. And I think another thing I want to mention is that the immediacy, and we can't wait and become anxious and this and that. That we have this constant conflict in our daily life. I think the technology and science became a little bit too much advanced for our own needs, while human evolution is very, very, like, let's say 2,000-3,000 years ago as a human, as now, is actually the same.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. We are very manual, analog.
Analog, yeah.
That's why we see the beauty in growing vegetables in your own backyard. It's a wonderful thing, right? You every day you just weeding out around the plant and giving the water every day, twice a day, and you see how these things grow, and you see the beauty of it, right? So that is a reflection of who we are as well. As a part of nature, we are nature as well. We are gradually growing being, gradually accumulating this virtue within ourselves, and that is a slow process. But externally, the smartphones, new smartphones come out every year, and we want to buy this latest version of phone every year and putting so much money. So you get used to this advent of technology and science too much, whereas that actually destroying us as a species, because we're not supposed to function like that.
No.
Machine is, but we are not. But we're trying to catch up. We want to be AI, right? But we're humans.
Yeah.
We are still analog. Our human evolution is way slower than science.
That's right. I mentioned about that in my book, Spiritual Freedom in the Digital Age, about how we're becoming increasingly robotic because we are trying to mimic the behavior of technology. And to your point, we are analog. We're not digital. We don't operate like that. There's a beauty in the evolution of a human being. But we're under the impression that there's no beauty in it. Well, the modern generation and the tech companies that push this. And unfortunately, a lot of people succumb to these illogical beliefs and this illogical behavior and understanding and think that it is good to get something instantly, isn't it? And it's like, no, it's not. It's better and it's more satisfying and you have more contentment when things take time. And that goes back to the point of the straight and rigid tree, right? So you have all of these tech companies, you have the government and everyone nourishing the straight tree. So how is the tree growing? The tree is growing according to interference. So everyone is interfering with that straight and rigid tree, like you mentioned with beliefs and agendas and that before. So this straight tree has all of these beliefs and agendas. And so it is the first one blown over or the first one cut down, because if you come with an alternative viewpoint or you hurt its feelings, then it is the first one to fall over. But how does the useless tree grow? The useless tree grows according to non-interference, according to Wu Wei. It follows the path of the Tao and just grows big and strong without being interfered with. And so it doesn't have a lot of beliefs. It doesn't have any agenda for the world. And that's what makes it strong.
Yes.
And so this type of thinking runs counter to modern thinking, because if you said to someone, I don't want to have an identity. My politics is not identity politics, it's non-identity politics. So I'm seeking not to have beliefs, I'm seeking not to have an agenda for the world. Because if I have an agenda for the world, it means I have condemned the world. It means I don't trust the world. It means that I think I know what is best for the world. And so the useless tree doesn't think that. The useless tree just lives long and grows big and is a reservoir of wisdom, because it has refrained from the world around it. It has restrained itself from diving head on into hedonism and instant gratification. And instead it is a reservoir for wisdom and enlightenment for all of us around in the world. And so that analogy is not just for a holy sage. That analogy is something that is related to each and every one of us when we begin to understand what this chapter is trying to say, that we need to follow the Tao rather than following the agenda and the beliefs of an external world that wants and seeks control of you. So guys, we hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you guys next time.